Welcome to the BWWP, Peace Place for Me video broadcast.
Welcome to Peace Place for Me, a virtual connection where the contagious love of Jesus Christ abides and thrives. We are an exclusive community of purpose to enhance and expand spiritual and holistic growth to advance the kingdom of God. Thank you for joining us today as we enter a time of sharing with Pastor and Chaplain Tracy Mack in this virtual, interfaith inclusive, and purpose-filled community. Let's listen in.
And where I want to speak to us today is also word power. We talked about some weeks ago, 2 different times, the power of reconnect, rediscover, rejuvenate, rekindle, reassess. We have the power to go back, not backwards, but to take another look, to look at things differently, to just redetermine some things. And then she comes along with the power to choose. Well, we have the power to choose what we do after we make those reassessments. What are we going to do? What can we do but one thing we have to do in order to have the power to choose is take on the power to pause. What I'm finding a lot of times when people are shifting or upgrading or reevaluating their lives, their beliefs or whatever, is people not taking the time to think. If I was going to use, well, I will use a scripture reference, Ephesians 4:8. Finally, my brothers and sisters, and I'm even reconditioning myself with how I read the Bible and using translations that are more akin to the actual Greek and Hebrew and some of the Aramaic that Jesus spoke. Because the King James Version, as many of us already know, he wasn't holy at all. He slept with some everybody, his mama, he had his mama killed, and he did all kind of things. He just financed the translation of the Bible, and they named it after him. And there's so many other versions, but I just found that the New Revised Standard is more akin to when I go look in the Strong's Concordance and I look at lexicons and stuff when I'm reading, because one thing I find that people who are so steeped in their religious beliefs is that a lot of times they based what they're so conditioned, the dogmas and the doctrines and the denominationalism that have them in the space that they are. A lot of them have never even really read or studied the Bible for themselves, or even take the time to think. And even when in Philippians, when we take time to think, whatever is true, what things should we be thinking about, y'all? When we pause, when we read, when we do the power of read, when we do the power to choose, and now we put the power in the pause, I'm talking about taking a time to pause to think. And when we take times to consider, Philippians 4:8, finally, my brothers and sisters, whatever things are honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, and if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. When we really consider, what are those things that are honorable, right, pure, lovely, commendable, and if there's any excellence? Sometimes people have given me the excuse, I will lean in to say, that they don't have time to think. And I usually present them with another thought. Why don't you have time? I mean, think about it. In this day and age, most of us who are of a certain age, our parents or grandparents or great-grandparents, they either had to cook to grow it, knew somebody who grew it, had to go out there in the field and plant it, water it, tend to it, harvest it, bring it in, trade it, can it, preserve it, slaughter it. We get to go to the grocery store. Not only that, if you want to, you can have your groceries, you can put in an order and go pick them up. And one step beyond that, if you want to, you can put in an order and they'll bring it to you. We have microwaves, crock pots. We have new and improved this and that. We have quicker ways to take care of ourselves. We don't have to go outside and pump water from the well and put it in a bucket and bring it in the house and heat it and pour it in the tub. We got hot water, thank God for most of us who do, because some people listen from other countries who may not. But in America and most countries, we can turn on the faucet, or as my grandpa used to say, the spigot, and you get water coming right out. So why don't we have time? What are our time snatchers? What are those time sabotagers that don't let us or want us to pause and think? Why don't they want us to pause and think? It's a whole lot to that. I don't want to get into the patriarchal, the political, the religious power that others take from us because they make it so we don't have to, and we get lazy and don't want to think. Because as I say a lot, thinking is not just the time, it's the engagement that you have to do with your brain. Because those synapses, those grooves, your brain is already, we've talked about it time again, but repetition is a law of learning. So in this repetition, law of learning, you have these synapses in your brain that when you have set a pattern to think or do something a certain way, it just easily goes down those same grooves all the time, all the time. And when you choose to pause, to think, to shift, to do a those synapses take on fear behavior and self-preservation. And they say, wait a minute, we don't like this new thought that's coming in. Sometimes it gets afraid because now it's got to build a new groove. And we don't always want to. So when we think about Lisa McClendon, who, thank God, we have, I will say she's a new friend in my life. We met through her coming into my inbox, inquiring about being on the podcast. Then it went from that to me inviting her to the conference, to Bishop D.E. Polk. When I told him that she was going to come to the conference, he said, "You think she'll sing?" And I said, "Let me see." And I spoke with her, and she said, "Of course I will, because I've been lonely out here with these new thoughts and these new things that are happening in my life. And I need somebody." And I said, "Baby, we are the vibe in your tribe. Come on." And so she was so elated to even be asked, because you got to think about when you do these shifts, everybody don't want you around no more. So you sit out there sometimes by yourself. And now she's finding through one inquiry, she hit my inbox through one inquiry, and then podcast, and then we'll meet each other face to face in Atlanta. And in between, we've been having some communication. But she wrote a song years ago before I even thought I would have the opportunity to meet her and speak and text with her from time to time. She wrote a song. I played one of her songs on the Start of Peace Place called Manifest. Manifest your love through me, Lord. Manifest your love. Show God, show the world. First of all, show them I am loved. And then I want to manifest that love to them. But she wrote another song back in, I think it may be in her House of Blues project. But anyway, it's called Pause. And she says, "If I can put the world on pause, if I can put the world on pause." And at the beginning, it's kind of chaotic where children are calling out to her. The producer wants the lyrics to the next song. And you know how sometimes our world gets and we say, "Oh, if I can put the world on pause." Well, here's the thing. We can. But do you have the balls enough to take the risk? Do you have the balls enough? And I know women, we don't have those. So do you have the nerve enough to take the risk to put the world on pause? I have many a times. And I'm going to tell you, you lose a lot, and it aches when you first pause and you realize the world keeps going on without you. And even if your pause is self-care, you see how sometimes your self-care will offend other people, even though they're not willing or maybe not even be capable or have the capacity to help you with what you need. So you've got to take some self-care time, and how that self-care time can be offensive to other people but you still got to lean in and take the risk to save your own life or to upgrade or to reap. You can spend 30 years or more on a job. You can retire, you can quit, maybe you can even die. You can put your best foot forward. You can work overtime. You can do whatever they need you to do. You can train new people to come in. You can do extra. You can go beyond the mile. You can go beyond the extra mile. You can do everything. And time you leave, retire, die, they're going to have somebody else sitting in your seat in 2 weeks. So all this stuff we do in the name of earning money, in the name of patriarchy, in the name of capitalism, in the name of church going and doing, do we have time to pause? Do we have time to check in? Do we have time to check up? My dad used to say, do a checkup from the neck up. I hear people saying that a lot now, Dad, but I remember you said it back in the 80s, do a checkup from the neck up. So your word kept going. And because sometimes we have to pause and take time to think, to check in with ourselves. You know how you go to the doctor and you got to check in first. You may have an appointment, but you still got to check in, whether you go to the desk or you go to the kiosk, you still have to check in because you're checking in so you can check up. So the pause is the check in. Let me just check in. I need to pause to check in. Then what you're going for to see the doctor or the physician's assistant or whoever you're seeing, that's the checkup. That's the time where you have to think. Think not only on these things, but think, do I believe what I believe? Or are my beliefs somebody else's opinions that are too weak to live in the life that I have now? Am I going on old things that I never even dissected, that I never even questioned? Because I was just in the groove. Those things were in the groove of my life. They were in the rhythm of my life. They were steeped in my traditions, and all traditions ain't bad. I talk about in my book of Purpose, the New Testament. I love to see the Marine Corps silent drill team. I saw them as a child, 5, 6 years old. Them jokers are they bad. The precision they have is unmatched. And it's a silent drill team. There are no verbal orders called. So the traditions of 8th and I, that's the battalion they're assigned to in DC, they're called the President's Own. They have to have a certain standard of tradition. Most of them are a certain size. They're about the same height. They look about the same weight. They have the same training in order for them to be able to perform as the President's Own, as this regimented army that can take silent drills and these heavy bayonet rifles and flip them and all that. So there's tradition there. There's certain traditions that we have that need to be. I'm a part of a sorority. There's certain traditions we have that make the sorority still tick and grow and evolve. But the key word is evolve. Can we evolve the traditions or evolve within the traditions? So a lot of times we never take time to question, why do we do that? I also talked about in that same book, plug, Amazon bestseller, the Book of Purpose, the New Testament, how when we were raising Jada, we never told her that there was that Santa Claus was real. She would see him at the store or whatever, but we never said Santa Claus came in, through the chimney. We didn't have a chimney in most of the government houses we lived in, and that he bought her gifts. Me and Owen worked too hard to buy her the stuff we got, but we let her say, Santa Claus. We treated Santa Claus like Mickey Mouse, a fantasy character that you can have some fun with, but it's not a real person. But Lord have mercy, I forgot to tell my child not to tell other kids that Santa Claus wasn't real, because she went around the neighborhood and people said, Santa Claus gonna bring me. And she said, Santa Claus ain't real. And Lord, some of the parents in the neighborhood tried to have a come to Jesus meeting with me because Jada messed up their children's Santa Claus. The reason why I didn't do Santa Claus, me and Owen did not, because if I start lying to her about Santa Claus, then I've got to say another lie. How do the gifts come in the house? Oh, well, we don't have a chimney, but he comes in the back. Okay, well then how does he know what I want? Well, you got to write him a letter. Well, then how does he get the letter? Well, you got to send it to the North Pole. Well, I thought it was too. You see how you got to lie on top of a lie? So then when I start telling her things about God and Jesus and the power of God and healing and miracles, and you gonna believe it? Or are you going to do what many of us have done just because my mama or the preacher or my daddy says it, I'm going to go and believe it. And I never question, I never research, I never think because my synapses have been wired. I've been conditioned. And so now, even if I can give the example of not not thinking less of yourself, or some people get heartbreak and anger because they believe something that's no longer true. And then they have to get at the crossroads. Do I still want to keep believing this thing? And a lot of times it's easier to say, yeah. But sometimes, just like when we were kids, y'all, when we were children and we outgrew shoes, we ripping and running. I know we had play shoes and church shoes and school shoes. That was school shoes. That was 3 pair. And your play shoes became, your school shoes were usually, you knew your church shoes was always fire. They were always nice. And your play shoes became old school shoes. But even in that, when we were children, our feet grew. When we were children, our shoes came untied when we played. And you cannot keep walking and running if you don't stop. Pause. You got to pause to tie your shoe. When you outgrow a shoe, it doesn't mean the old shoes were wrong. The old shoes got you to the new shoes. It means your feet are growing. And I don't know. I remember when we were young and you went to the store to get some shoes, whether it be Montgomery Wards or Sears or JCPenney, or sometimes we got them out the basket at A&P. The shoes that was tied together. But when you went to a real shoe store like Tom McAn or Belk, or you went to Buster Brown somewhere, they had those little silver things that you put your foot in to size your foot, the length and the width, to see what the next size was. Now, if y'all were like my parents, even though the lady or the man at the store who was sizing you said they a size 6, your parents would say, give them a 6.5 or a 7 so they can grow into them. But you had to stop. Even now, forget those stores. Jada worked for a while at a place called Fleet Feet, where they specialize in sizing you appropriately for athletic shoes. And it's this technology where you stand on this thing, and this technology does an imprint of your foot, and they size you right. If you need inserts, if you need orthopedic inserts so that you have the right fit, you have to pause, you have to stop, you have to sit down, you have to go into the store. You can't change your shoes walking. You can't tie them walking. And people, you think people that there's harm in pausing to tie your shoe? That there's harm in getting the appropriate size because you've outgrown certain things? The same thing applies to our spiritual beliefs. Even in basketball, I've shared with Peace Place, you pivot. That guard comes down the court. They come down the court wide open, but then they get to a point where they just got to stand there and dribble. And if somebody's really defending their basket, then they all over that guard and they reaching, trying not to get fouled. And that guard has to stop and then pivot. And what they start doing is looking for, who can I pass this to? They may have to pass it to the center. They may have to pass it to somebody else, the point guard or whatever. They may have to pass it to pivot so they can get into another position, a better position to shoot the 3. Because just because you drive it down court, we've driven our beliefs down court, but then things happen in our lives. We say, wait a minute, it's stuff reaching in on me. I got to pause. I got to pause and pivot. I got to become a part of a community where maybe I don't have all the answers, but in the community, somebody else is the point guard. Somebody else is the center. Somebody else is right there beside me and ain't nobody on them. And I can pass them the ball, not giving them control of my life, but giving me time to think and get into position so I can shoot and make the basket. So the power in pausing takes nothing away from the powerful woman or man that you are. It takes nothing away from your beliefs, but it does give you time to think the width, the breadth, the length of what do I really believe? And as my virtual church, Spirit and Truth Sanctuary, the question that we've been posing all year is it working for me? Is what I believe working for me? And if it is, baby, keep going with it. But if it's not, Take time to pause. There's power, there's prize, there's position in the pause. Take time to think on these things. I said on a video some time ago that I've always had questions, and I like to call them sacred questions. That's probably why I started off with Miss Hines questions. Questions to me are sacred because they give you time to think and pause. And even when I was a little girl, I said before, and I'll say now for those that may not have heard it, and repetition is the law of learning for those that may have heard it. When I was a little girl, one of the first things I remember one of the first times I had to memorize a scripture and for Sunday school. And mine was Genesis 1:1. I happened to be the youngest in that age group Sunday school class. So they assigned by age what they thought would be the easiest for us to remember or whatever. And mine was Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And so after we had done that for a while and we actually presented it, you stand in front of church, in the beginning, God created the heavens, and you do your little stuff and people clap for you and gives you incentive to learn some more. But not too long after that, they showed us the movie, The Burning Hell. And I think that movie was put out in 1974. It was probably 76, 77 before they showed it. And I was scared. It scared the hell out of me as a little kid. But what I couldn't reconcile, even at that age, because Genesis 1:1 said, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And it goes on to say, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness covered the earth. Y'all can go read it for yourself if you don't know it by heart. But in Sunday school, and I'm not going to name his name, but I do remember the Sunday school teacher. He was really nice. He was an officer in the Marine Corps because the church was around the military community. We were military, but it was down in the country. I'll say the church. It was Pilgrim Rest Christian Church, but I don't want to say anything negative about the Sunday school teacher because he's a really good Sunday school teacher. But he said, Tracy, you're asking too many questions. But my question was, if in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and I had just seen this terrible movie that had me with nightmares and sky watching for the rapture at 7 years old, 6, 7 years old. If God created the heavens and the earth, my question was, teacher, when did God create hell? And he said, put your hand down, Tracy. And so goes the story of my life ever since then. Put your hand down, Tracy. Because my questions sometimes are too big for the life I live. And so I'm always questioning, not to debate or not to undermine anybody, but thinking is a power. Don't you know that when God created the heavens and the earth, they were in his thoughts before they came out his mouth? Your mouth tells on your thoughts. So think, take time to pause. That's the key I'm driving home. Pause. It's okay. Don't let the world carry you too fast because they will. What are those time snatchers for those people say, I don't have time to think? What are those time snatchers? Is it social media? That thumb, just a scrolling? Is it television? Just a watching? I binge watch a lot of things sometimes. And sometimes I was telling Miss Hines one time when I watch too much, something will come on a show that I'm watching too much and God will speak to me through that. And let me turn this off. And it's not out of fear. It's something that a character will do or say, and I'll get a thought. Oh, and I got to turn it off right then to ride that thought out a little bit. So take time. You deserve the self-care, the mind care, the body care, the heart care, the heart work. It's taking time to think, to rethink, to pause, to re-engage. We are too young and too old not to, y'all. We have lived too long and got too long to live, not to readjust and think and pause. And I don't care if they say, put your hand down, Tracy. It may not be that person that has the capacity to answer. Find your tribe, find your community, and lean in and think. Pause, check in, pivot. Pivoting is not a lost cause. It's just getting yourself in position to take a better shot. That's all I got for you this morning, Peace Place and Black Women's World podcast. And I'm grateful and I love y'all for real. Much love and peace.
Thank you for listening to Peace Place for Me, a place of peace for you. On behalf of Pastor and Chaplain Tracy Mack, we hope you enjoyed today's sharing. and the blessed time spent together. We want to express our gratitude in advance for the generous gifts you have chosen to share for the benefit of our community. We hope to fellowship with you the next time we come together on 2nd and 4th Sundays, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. For access to join our virtual meetings, email us at peace@blackwomensworld.com. That is, peace@blackwomensworld.com. Or visit our website at peaceplaceforme.com. Until next time, peace and blessings to you.